Is it that we're trying to do what we could do in our 20s? Or is it that as a generation, we just think that we're supposed to grind? So I don't know the answer to this. A lot of us are children of baby boomers. Most of us are, and the baby boomers, they had to grind. So a lot of them didn't have a choice because of a lot of reasons. They had to grind, and they put a lot of that in us, basically saying, this is what we had to go through. And so they kind of instilled a bit of grind into us. Yeah. Some of us grind for the sake of grinding, not that we necessarily have to, but just for the sake of grinding. And so, one of the things we used to say in the military, embrace the suck. And that was what I used to do running a marathon on a torn labrum. It was like, okay, things are going bad. This is the time when I can show what I'm worth,
right?
By working through this.
Yeah.
And it's like, is that what we're doing?
Right.
Are we grinding just for the sake of grinding?
Well, I think. Hey, welcome back to the 36th episode of Love, Growth, and Narratives. I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Frederick.
And today we're going to continue the conversation, part 2 of the Gen X, and how we are aging and what that looks and feels like. We're going to be talking about how there was once upon a time we were looking at our parents and seeing them as old, and now we are at the age where we were calling them old. We're experiencing those aches and pains and just taking a longer time to recover. We just want to talk about that for a bit. I know I'm feeling it quite a bit, so I'm sure a lot of you out there as well. I'm coming up on 55 coming this Friday, and some days I feel 95. But we're going to be talking about that, and I hope you enjoy and it resonates. I'm sure it's going to resonate with those who are at that age, but those who are coming up, please listen. Please listen.
Yeah, and thanks again for the support that we've gained on the podcast. I know a lot of them are Gen Xers, and a lot of them are going through the things that we're going through. Some of it is realization, some of it is still denial, because it's hard to realize how the things we used to laugh at, now we're starting to become.
Right.
So now we're going to go ahead and get started with the episode.
Yes, we'll be right back.
All right. So as we start this, one of the things I wanted to talk about was, so I went in the Army at 17. Had to get the parental waiver and all that kind of stuff, which of course wasn't a problem with my parents because they wanted me out of there. but the reason why I bring that up is that when I went into basic training, there was actually one guy in my platoon in basic training who was twice my age. And so, and of course I had fun with him being the old guy. And even my times in the military, as well as when I got out, being in telecom, and during my rise in telecom, myself and my best friend Robert, we were always kind of the young guns, in the group. And so, seeing a lot of the older people that we worked with, and all the aches and pains and the stuff that they would talk about, right. And laughing about that. And yeah, it's not so funny now.
No, it's not. It's absolutely not. And I was never super energetic person, but I went in and out of phases. I was somewhat fit up until my early 20s, and I got really out of shape. In my 30s, I lost some weight. And then when I hit my 40s, I lost a ton of weight and got really in shape and felt the best ever in my life. And now here I am back at, with weight on, but also with age, with other factors that don't quite, they just feel different.
Yeah.
I just, sometimes I don't know if it's also age and also just health and quality of life. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I feel like my attention span is shorter, and that could be, I'm a product of now what the generation after us is going through with all this social media and
yes.
phone. And also just my memory isn't, I'm just not as sharp. Like I forget things that I used to be able to hold in my mind. Like I used to know about every single spot my students were in any given, like how many sight words they knew, whatever the case may be. And now I'm like, what? Wait, what's their last name? Where I find myself looking at them like you calling them the wrong name and all
Yeah.
kind of stuff, and they're just laughing at me. But I can't believe that that's where I'm at already, and I'm about to be 55, and it pretty much feels like every time, you know, every time a year passes, it's almost like something in the body also changes. Like that warranty is constantly,
Yeah.
being checked.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting. It really, truly is. And plus, I'm in the menopausal era. Just so much going on. It's unbelievable,
Yeah.
So, what about you? Are you feeling a big difference? I know they said men don't have menopause, but I think men have something.
Yeah. And sorry, we're a little distracted here because we're recording at home and our dog is trying to get into the scene because he wants to talk about his aging because he's 6 years old now and he thinks that we want to talk about what he's going through, but this is our podcast and
Yes.
he needs to
Right.
go away
No
before he
donkey podcast.
knocks something over.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Down.
Yes.
Down. Thank you.
But yeah, so what were you asking me again? I'm sorry.
Is there something that you feel happens to you around this age that you think men, I know they say men have what is it? They go through midlife crisis or whatever.
Yeah, I never really went through a midlife crisis.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but I know that I've talked to a lot of guys who've gone through this where they look back and they talk about all the things that they didn't do and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to do so many things. Um, so I don't remember having those types of regrets. I've always tried to jump out there and do things.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't always do them well. I didn't always succeed,
Mm-hmm.
but I tried.
Yeah.
And so I don't really have a lot of that.
Okay.
I don't really have those regrets. And so I think a lot of that midlife crisis are, men, and maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong, but I think a lot of it times with men who are full of regrets. And I'm not full of regrets.
Okay.
I tried.
Yeah.
I screwed up
Yes.
some things, but
Right.
I tried. So
Yeah.
I'm not full of regrets.
Okay,
So
well, that's good. That's great.
I
I don't think I am really. I mean, there's a few that wasted time here and there with certain people, but I mostly it's just these changes that I can't even control. Like
Mhm.
sometimes I'm at a loss for where I know the word that I want to say,
Yeah,
but I can't picture it. So I end up saying something much less meaningful.
I do that as well.
That happens to me quite a bit. And what happened to me that I noticed during COVID, and I don't know if this is an age thing or maybe it was just, I don't know. But I remember, and if you remember this well, that I had COVID and I was using the thermometer and I couldn't hear the beep on the
I
thermometer.
do remember that.
And I thought it was
remember
the
that.
thermometer. So I ordered
Yes.
another thermometer.
Yeah.
And then you were sitting next to me and you're like, yeah, it's beeping. I'm like, I don't hear it.
Yeah.
And so I went to get my hearing checked and I cannot hear very high pitched sounds. And the doctor told me that if I don't, or anyone who doesn't wear a hearing aid when they need one,
hmm
it will start to impact a part in your brain that affects the speech and recalling words
Yeah.
or hearing the ending sound of words.
Yeah.
And that really scared me. And for a while I wore them pretty frequently, but I kind of haven't been lately. I'm going back and forth. But that was like new to me. Like, whoa, I need hearing aids now. There's some arthritis in my lower back, and I'm sure weight, doesn't help with that.
Yeah.
But just my energy levels are not there. I'm way more tired. I never was a high energy person, but I used to be able to hang out. Like we would get to the club at 11
Yeah.
when it got started and get home at 3 and go to work the next day. Forget it. If I tried anything like that, I'm down for like 2 or 3 days now.
Yeah.
I think my thought process has changed too. I was always kind of a little more on the conservative side, but even more so now. Alcohol, which I enjoy a drink, but the next day even if I just had one drink, I'll feel like I had a hangover.
Yeah.
Just things really impact me differently than before. And with me turning 55 in the next couple of days, what today's the 10th and 4 more
Yeah.
days, I'm thinking about, some younger people or friends are like, oh, you get to go to Ross, now and get the discount on Tuesdays, or, you get a discount at IHOP.
Yeah, and at the movies.
Right, because
Yeah.
55 is the number, the magic number at some places. And then I'm getting called ma'am. I mean, most of the time people tell me that I look much younger than my age. I'm not hearing that as much as I did before. So I'm like, But I think the other day I was buying some sneakers and he said ma'am like 50 times. And I was like, excuse you. I mean, why are you calling me ma'am?
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's interesting. And I've had a few students accidentally call me grandma.
Oh, wow.
So, yes, I'm like, nothing. I mean, we're blessed if we're getting older. I'm not putting that down. This isn't about, ageism or anything.
Yeah.
But just to see yourself in a place now that a long time ago, you thought it was so far off when you saw it happening to your parents. It just seemed like 55 seems so much older a long time ago than it does now. And I think I am more active than maybe my mom was at 55, but I definitely feel a change within me that I want to help slow down if I can. And I know there's certain things that we need to do, like lifting weights and just getting more sleep, which is another thing that I was not great at before. In my 40s, I probably got like 4 or 5 hours of sleep. Now, well, especially being with you because you go to sleep early.
I am.
And so I am getting a lot more sleep with you, even though sometimes I go to bed a little bit later than you. But I need it. I feel that I need it in order for me to really feel replenished and refreshed the next day.
Yeah.
I need like 8 hours, where before I
Yeah.
did not need that much sleep at all.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things, like when I was younger, when you're young and I was a pretty skinny kid, I think I went in the Army, I was probably 150, 155 pounds, something like that. And when I came out of the Army, I think I was maybe 175, 180, something like that. And when I came out of the Army and I still was, I didn't get too heavy initially because I was still active and playing basketball and stuff like that. But then my daughter was born. I started working like crazy. My knees started bothering me, so I couldn't play basketball anymore. And I just started to grind. I started to become more of a workaholic. And I really just kind of abused and neglected my health. And I kind of took on that, sleep when I'm dead kind of stuff. And this is back when I was in telecom, and I lived 50 miles away from where I worked. And so anyone who's from the DMV can understand living in Maryland and working in Northern Virginia, going around the Beltway every day. And it was a 52-mile commute one way. And it would take me about an hour and a half to 2 hours to get to work, and sometimes 3.5 hours to get home. And I remember I would get up at like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning to go to work. And I would try to get off early, and I would leave out of work and I would wake up in the parking lot of my townhouse.
Wow.
And so when I told people I could actually get to work, get home, sleep, I actually did. And I know that's not safe.
Yeah.
And I don't see how I did it because I drove stick,
Oh,
so,
yeah,
so it's like, how was I actually doing that? But, I wasn't taking care of myself. I don't know how I survived it. I put on a ridiculous amount of weight. I got up to 280 pounds twice. When both of my sons were born, I got up to 280 pounds. And I wasn't taking care of myself. And so because of that, I looked really old. I looked really old in my mid to late 30s into my 40s. I just looked old and run down. Now, actually, here I am, 53, about to be 54. And people have told me, I actually look younger now than I did in my 40s because, I left the grind.
Yeah.
I started to take care of myself, getting in shape, getting sleep, doing those things where that I should have been doing 20, 25 years ago. So those were some of but the whole thing is that you don't realize it when you're in it because these things happen gradually over time. It's not like you're this slim person and then immediately you're fat.
Right.
That's not what happens.
Right.
It happens so gradually that you don't even realize it until it's really late in the game.
Right.
But yeah, but over the years, and so like for me, as I've gotten older, I've actually felt better the older I get because I'm taking more care of myself. Now, with that said, there are certain things that Father Time is still going to do to me.
Right. Right. Yeah.
There are certain things that Father Time is still going to mess with me. I had to have the hip replacements. I still have other issues that are age related, but the things that I can prevent, I am trying to do a better job at, and just trying to be more healthy, just a little bit more healthy.
Yeah. For me, I am trying to, I spent a good amount of my 40s getting healthy and being healthy. I think though it was all about the way I looked though. That was my focus. Any other benefits was just icing on the cake. And so now I know that I can't make it about the looks really at all. That's the icing on the cake, and that it really needs to be more about just health, feeling better, having more energy, being stronger, which I am stronger because during COVID, which I loved being home, when I went back into the classroom and I like to sit on the floor at times with the kids, I could not get off of that floor by myself. And now I could do it. Like I've been doing it, more and more. And I see how quickly your body adjusts when you push it.
Yes.
But yet my knees are shot. And I think part of that was all the heavy weight I was lifting when I was lifting all the, trying squatting and all that. But my knees going down the stairs, not fun. And I don't want to push myself, but I don't want to injure myself. I do have some injuries because of how hard I went before. And I just actually saw a video the other day of a fitness guru who said, if you're trying to work out in your 40s like you did in your 20s, that's why you're so exhausted.
Yes.
And that you really need to work out smarter and not expend so much energy or time doing cardio. And I would work out 3-4 hours or more a day, 7 days a week. And I was tired then. That was in my 40s when I did that. And I was tired. There's no way, even thinking about doing that much working out in my 50s makes me exhausted, right? But I do feel a difference when I do work out, like just 30 minutes a few times a week. I see a difference. I feel a difference. And I know that that's a much better way for me to live. But some of the other things.
But real quick, because I wanted to get a little bit back into what we were talking about from the Gen X perspective.
Okay.
Is it that we're trying to do what we could do in our 20s? Or is it that as a generation, we just think that we're supposed to grind? So I'm not, I don't know the answer to this, but it seems like because coming off of a lot of us are children of baby boomers. Most of us are, and the baby boomers, they had to grind. So a lot of them didn't have a choice because of a lot of reasons. They had to grind, and they put a lot of that in us, basically saying, this is what we had to go through. And so they kind of instilled a bit of grind into us. And some of us grind for the sake of grinding, not that we necessarily have to, but just for the sake of grinding. And so, like, one of the things we used to say in the military, embrace the suck. And that was what I used to do when I started working out was, running a marathon on a torn labrum. It was like, okay, things are going bad. This is the time when I can show what I'm worth,
right?
By working through this.
Yeah.
And it's like, is that what we're doing?
Right.
Are we grinding just for the sake of grinding?
Well, I think we're in a culture. I don't hear it as much. I hear it more like have a soft life and it's okay to rest. Like that's the period that we're in now. But just say a few years ago, yeah, it was still just about grinding, right? We see all these celebrities who have 50 million jobs and making all this money, and we're like, we got to do that. I mean, in my early 20s, I was working 3 part-time jobs and going to school full time. That's when I gained a significant amount of weight. Like I felt like do that. Like I'm a badass for doing this too.
Right.
You know, and now I'm like, oh no.
But you did that because you had to. But did you?
I didn't really have to.
But did you brag about being busy? What did you do? Did you take it as a badge of honor?
I think I did. Like I work 3 part-time jobs and I'm going to school full time. Yeah, I saw that as like, wow, you did that. Like that's something to give a high five to. I was living at home. I lived at home until I was 34, for goodness sake. You know, I didn't have to do that. I have to borrow all the money that I did and I have to work all those jobs that I did. But it felt like that's dope. That's being a bad, like, you know, you do this and this and that, and you're a go-getter.
Yeah, because I know that when I was in when I worked for Bell Atlantic, I was a pole climber back in the 90s. And I did take it as a badge. You know, I'm a man. You know, I've got a family. That was when I had my older 2 kids. And, you know, this is what a man's got to do. And so, I was a pole climber for Bell Atlantic. And then I was a contractor for cable TV Montgomery in the evenings and on the weekends. And then when I wasn't doing either one of those 2, me and a friend of mine, Ben, would go around and do installations of telephone and cable jacks in people's houses. So we worked 7 days a week, basically 14 hours a day. And what would happen is every 2 weeks, almost like clockwork, I would get up in the morning and my body couldn't move. And so I would call in everywhere and take that day off and I would sleep all day. And then the next day, get back up and get back to the grind. And I did kind of take it as a badge of honor that this is what a man's supposed to do, you know, but I was doing an install at this guy's house and he was probably 10 years older than me. And I was telling him about, you know, this is what I'm doing as a man to take care of my family. And he said, you'll never get anywhere doing that. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm taking care of my family. I'm bringing food home and all this kind of stuff. He said, but you'll never be able to concentrate on one career enough where you'll be able to advance in that career and get to a point where you don't have to work so hard. You're grinding to a point where you'll always have to grind.
Right.
You're never getting yourself to a point where you don't have to.
Yeah.
And so, and I remember when he told that to, and it was a little hurtful, you know, it was a little hurtful, you know, I was, you know, but the more I thought about it, he was right. And about 7-8 months later, I got onto the fiber optic side. I went over to WorldCom, and there I had one job. I gave up everything else, and he was right. I started to advance because I concentrated only on that.
Yeah,
and I started to advance. But yeah, but it's crazy because all I was thinking about was this is what a man's supposed to do. I'm supposed to grind.
Yeah.
You know, and just run myself into the ground.
Right. And that's a good point because men are pushed. There's this big thing about being a provider, and being a provider means money, and money, like it's okay for you to, as long as you're going after that dollar, doesn't matter how many hours you work and all this and that. And I think men age, you know, physically a lot quicker because of that. And they end up passing away before women a lot of the times. And so especially, I would say, you know, depending on the married, you know, if you're married or not, but, I feel like that's something we need to, everyone deserves to have a little bit of a softer life, you know, it's not about gender, but it's just about being human. And I think that's something we know now as we get older. I don't want to be grinding all the way till I'm 62 and then I get a good 4 years in and boom, right? I know people are living longer, but with what conditions, you know?
Right.
And so, I'm really looking at life differently than before. And I hope that a young person listening to this, or those of us who are our age and have young people in our lives, that we really, point this out to them. I try to tell this to my students even.
Mhm.
I mean, I try to say, like, you get one heart.
Yes.
You could get a transplant, but you don't want one. You
Absolutely.
get one brain, you get one. Like,
Absolutely.
take care of it. This
Yeah.
idea that kids can fill their bodies with junk,
Yes.
because they're young and all of that. Like,
Yes.
it's impacting you all along.
Mhm.
So, especially nowadays, food is, the contents is worse than ever. So that idea of, wait till later to start fixing stuff, don't, because
No, absolutely
you
not.
won't have to fix as much if you kind of start some of it early.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's really hard when you've beaten yourself up,
Mhm.
beaten your system up, for so long. One of the podcasts I love to listen to is this Dr. Peter Attia, and he talks about a difference between lifespan and health span.
Mhm.
It's like, do you want to be a person who lives a long time, or do you want to be a person who's healthy for a long time?
Mhm.
There's a difference.
Right. Mhm.
Do you want to be 100 years old and say I made it to 100, or do you want to be 100 years old and be able to actually pick up your great grandchildren and
Yeah.
actually get up off the floor and
Right.
those types of
Right.
things?
Right.
And so it has really changed my thought process, because, like I said, in our generation, sleep was not something that was thought of highly.
Mhm. Yeah.
Generation X, you didn't talk about, I'm gonna just go home and get some sleep and
Yeah.
and rest. Rest? What are you
Right.
doing resting?
Right. Yeah.
What is wrong
People
with
made
you?
fun of you, took a nap. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. You
What
take
is wrong
naps.
with you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Robert, he was taking naps, in his 20s and 30s, and we
Yeah.
said, "Oh, come on, Robert, what are you doing, man? What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Naps?
Right.
What are you, 5?
Right.
Yeah, but changing the narrative there
Mhm.
to be more healthy. But here's the interesting point, is that I found that the more rest I get, the better I take care of myself, I'm so much more productive,
Mhm.
because that grind actually made me less productive,
Right. Yeah.
made me less efficient, because the
Mhm.
mind isn't working that well.
Right. Right.
And so you end up working twice as hard.
Yeah. Mhm.
So, it's these are the things that unfortunately we learn late in life that we
Yes.
wish we had learned in our 20s and
Right.
30s.
Right. I think another really important thing, something that can absolutely age you, is married life if it's not
Mhm.
healthy, right? And
Yes.
so the idea of glorifying the amount of years you've been married versus the quality of the marriage. I mean, of
Absolutely.
course there's going to be ups and downs and all kinds of things,
Yes.
but it really shows up on our faces and our
Yes.
bodies, if we, stayed a certain amount of time in something that hasn't been productive, or been helpful towards us. So I think we're also learning that um you don't have to be in these bad relationships. You don't,
Absolutely.
So a lot more people are staying single now. They're getting divorced for different reasons, right?
Yes.
I'm not like saying, giving a shout out to the divorce rate, but people are getting married less because they're wanting more from that person. They're not wanting to
Yes.
be, just married for the sake of being married, or just married so that they can grind, whether the man's grinding
Yes.
outside the home and the woman's grinding inside the home. They want a little bit more for themselves. They want more of a quality relationship.
And that's a lot of
Yeah.
times where the midlife crisis comes from,
Mhm.
because you did things out of safety,
Yeah.
out of comfort, and then you look back and you're like, what did I actually do? What did I
Mhm.
accomplish?
Mhm.
I didn't do the things that I wanted and needed to do, because I took the safe route.
Right.
I got married. I'm in a bad marriage.
Mhm.
However, I don't want to get out of my comfort zone. Even though it's bad, it's still comfortable,
Mhm.
and here I am talking, and I've been, I've been divorced twice, and but the whole thing is, I also had to own my failures,
Right. Mhm.
and that's part of it, is owning your screw ups,
Yeah.
owning your failures, getting
Right.
out there, failing, owning it, fixing it, and keep on moving.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Fail fast, get up and keep moving.
Mhm. Mhm.
So all of these things that we learn, that we wish that we could have learned earlier in life, and we're trying to get the other generations to hopefully learn it a little faster than we did.
Right. Yeah.
You know, but with these newer generations, it's harder because their challenges are so totally different from ours. You know, we didn't have the extreme levels of comparison that they do.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I mean, when you were 16, you were compared to your friends and maybe the other girls in your high school and stuff like that.
Right.
You weren't compared to like millions.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
You know,
yeah.
and millions who had filters and
yeah.
BBLs
Yes.
and implants and
Right.
you know, you weren't compared to that.
Right.
You know, so what they're going through is a special kind of thing that we never had to deal with.
Right. Which I think now, as you know, where we are in our life, we realize how important mental health is.
Yes.
I don't think enough people in the past talked about it. They just kind of went
no,
through
we
it.
absolutely didn't talk
high
about
functioning or whatever. But I think now people are talking about the mental health a whole lot more and looking at the damage that's being caused by societal's, pressures, society's pressures. And I think that's really helpful. I think more and more young people are getting the help that they need. But then again, some of that is going too far, right? Like the one person that I cannot think of her name. She's a therapist that we follow who was talking about people start identifying themselves as their problem.
Right. Yes.
And so there's just so much to think about, right? But we're always learning. Like I feel like I'm always learning at this age.
Yes.
So I do appreciate social media for that because I'm getting exposed to a lot of things that might take me longer to find out about or I may not know. But I'm so happy to be here because there's people who are not. People who are dearly missed. Along with that, we're watching our parents age and, in some cases having to take care of them and support them.
Yes.
Which brings us to, we have to think about that for ourselves, especially someone, I would say like me, who while, now we have a stepson, but still like usually the boys don't do all of that work where they take care of the parents. So we're talking about what are we going to do when we get older? Who's going to take care of us? You know what I mean? And these are things we need to think about. Probably a lot younger and start paying for long-term care a lot younger because now it's more expensive and there's ways that they block you out of it because if you have any ailments, like there's just so much to talk about, to think about. And I think it's important for young people to tap in or if you're like in your 30s, start tapping into some of this.
But there's also so much more information.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing that we don't talk about. I mean, we talk about the issues with social media and the issues with the internet. I'm going to tell you, there is no better time to be alive. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The amount of information that we have. I love social media. I love the internet. I love the fact that when I need to know something, that I can just go online and find it. I love the fact that I can see, my niece and my nephews doing things, my younger nephews going to Taekwondo, one of my older nephews, pictures at his jujitsu tournament.
Yeah.
I love that.
Right.
So we can beat up the internet and social media for its problem. And there are problems, but let's take a deep breath and understand that a lot of the progress that we've made as a society is because of the technology.
Yeah.
So, you kind of, there are trade-offs to everything.
Right. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Maybe we need to bring on some millennials one of these days. Maybe bring in my younger sister, Elon. She's a millennial and see what their thought process is.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think going back to, getting older, I appreciate it in many ways. There's things that don't bother me that used to, how I view myself through other people's lenses, things like that. It's so much easier to say no.
Absolutely.
I think it's great that's why I admire when I have a student who's like, my students are 7 and 8, when they're already so sure of themselves and like, nope, yep, like I admire that so much, because most adults are not comfortable doing all of that. So I really,
that is one of the most awesome things about getting older is you get so much better at saying no.
Yeah.
You get so comfortable saying, I don't want to do that.
Right.
Nah, no thanks.
Yeah. You're so much more in tune with yourself. And that can happen earlier. You need to be
Yes.
taught to do that though. But it's
Yeah.
something automatic that happens where you're just like, I'm too tired. And
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not
tired.
doing that.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
doing that. Not
Yeah,
today.
it's not gonna
right?
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that is an awesome thing.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. So
Yeah. But yeah, I think we've gone through enough of this, and we'll start wrapping this up. Do you have any final thoughts?
no, I just want people to, if you're younger, if you're in your 40s, 30s, or whatever, and you haven't been taking care of yourself consistently, start. And then if you're in your 50s, it's never too late. Go to those doctor's appointments, make sure all those milestones that we are told about that we need to check on, make sure that we're out there and checking on those things and that we're, taking care of our bodies. Don't be too hurt by being called, ma'am, or being ignored even in society. Just go where you're loved and wanted, and embrace the fact that you are getting older, because it's a blessing, for lack of a better word, that you're still here, because so many people are not. And I just hope that we can embrace it more and not fight it so much, because I think that ages you even more. You're so worried about 500 creams that you need to use and all this other stuff. I know it's easier to say with darker skin, like we tend to, you know what I mean? So I have to keep that in mind. I mean, I use some of the products too.
Yeah.
But I think we get so caught up in trying to look young.
Yes.
And we might miss the other parts of, the great parts of
just
getting
enjoying
older.
life.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoying life. And what I would like to say is let's just try to be a little bit better. Not drastically better, not killing yourself. I mean, here I am. I'm a man who likes to have a nice sip of bourbon here and there. I'm a person who loves to have my key lime pie here and there. I don't do all the right things all the time. And I'm saying this to you as much as I'm saying it to myself, is to give yourself some grace, but to always just try to be a little bit better. Not, don't try and go crazy. When you see that the changes need to be made, you see you need to get in shape, just try to get in a little bit better shape. Try to eat a little bit better. Don't try to go crazy and do these fad diets and all the rest of that stuff. Just try to get a little bit better. See what is something that's sustainable, and just work towards that, and just give yourself grace, which is not an easy thing to do. I'm still trying to figure it out.
I agree. And with just one last piece, with trying to get better, there are some people, we've talked about this a lot, like trying not to go so far to either end. I mean, if you want to, and you're going to make your home into a farm, okay, great. But it's okay to, like you said, just do some things better. You don't have to recreate every single thing, because then now you're taking your time in some other way that you could be enjoying, the years that we have left. So just finding that balance, I think is really important.
Absolutely.
And sometimes small changes make big, make a big difference.
Yes. So with that said, for this 36th episode of Love, Growth, and Narratives, I'm Frederick.
And I'm Tiffany.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.